southeast of Ballard, Utah, is a property known as Sherman Ranch, but to some it is called Skinwalker Ranch. It is the home to some allegedly amazing paranormal and UFO related activities. Claims about the ranch first appeared in the Salt Lake City, Utah Desert News and later in the alternative weekly publication, the Las Vegas Mercury, as a series of articles by journalist George Knapp. These early stories detailed the claims of a family that had recently purchased and occupied the property, only to experience an array of inexplicable and frightening events. Hi, I'm Dr. Rita Louise, and this is Just Energy. Today we're going to be speaking with Erica Luks about this remote and mysterious location. What's going on there? Is the property haunted? With the people living there experiencing poltergeist activities? Or is it something more? Erica Luks' passion for the subject of UFOs dates back to her early childhood. After a series of personal sightings in 2013, Erica felt compelled to find out what was taking place in her home state of Utah. She is the head of the Utah UFO Research Project, an organization which focuses on scientifically researching UAPs, otherwise known as unidentified aerial phenomena. Erica also works with other UFO-based organizations on a local as well as global level. She is driven to not only broaden public awareness of UAPs, but also to develop research protocols that can be utilized by other organizations. She is also the host of the hit radio show UFO Classified. Her webpage is ufoclassified.com, so please welcome Erica Luks. Hey, Erica, how are you doing?
I am happy to be here. It's going to be a great adventure for both of us. Thanks for having me.
Well, I think we are going to have so much fun. It's like two smart, attractive women getting our brains together and talking about important stuff.
I know. Imagine that. And there's so many of us out here. That's the great thing.
But let's kind of start talking about you. What got you interested in studying UFOs in the first place?
Oh, I've had a lifelong interest in this. And I remember picking up my first book at the school library when I was 6 years old. And something to me was so fascinating. It hit a part of me. And I'd always studied it. I followed things, when Communion came out in high school. For me, that was such a pivotal book, when I was reading Bud Hopkins and all of these people. And so I always knew that there was something more to life, something other than the black and white tangible aspects that we see every day. And I wanted to know more about it. So it was, all out.
6 years old. See, I started studying archaeology and anthropology when I was fifth grade. But 6 years old is way younger than that.
Well, I was an only child, so, but I loved that. I was raised with a mother who was incredibly intelligent and very open-minded, but not so much that, your brain falls out. But she allowed me to make educated choices as to what I wanted to believe or where I wanted to go with things, and that was really important.
That's excellent. Have you ever had a personal UFO experience?
I have. I've had interesting UFO experiences and paranormal as well, which is pretty common as you know.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2013, we have a great view of the valley here in Salt Lake City, and I was on the deck one night with my friends, and we noticed this large orange luminous ball, a sphere. We watched it for a while. We've got air traffic that comes in and out of the Salt Lake International Airport, and since I usually sit outside, I'm familiar with what planes and helicopters and other things look like, and I knew that this was different. So we sat there and watched it, and there was another one that appeared to come out of the big one, and we're just sitting there like, okay, this is odd, and then the big one or the smaller one goes around in a circle. And so to me, it was just like, holy cow, what is this? Why aren't other people seeing this? And how do I learn more about what's taking place right in front of all of us?
That is so cool. But you said Salt Lake City. I've been to Salt Lake City once and walked around actually the church, the tabernacle, right? All right, there's a tabernacle, but then there's actually the church part, which
Right.
we actually got onto the grounds, which I guess you're not supposed to.
Oh,
And and all I kept saying, and you're gonna laugh, was Tommy knockers knocking at my door because the energy there was so alien, like ooh, alien, not alien as in just weird.
yeah.
So is there a lot of UFO activity in the Salt Lake City area?
There is, and with my research team, and when I was with MUFON Utah, and now we have, we look at where the sightings clusters occur, and there are very specific areas. So you've got the Kennecott copper mines here, which is kind of a hotbed, and then you've got over by, the NSA, we've got Dugway Proving's ground, and we've got all of these really interesting things. And then we've got the salt flats, the Great Salt Lake. So we have some interesting areas as far as military installations, and then as far as the mineral and rare earth content that I believe some of these objects could be attracted to. So it's quite curious.
But see, now it takes me to the next thing is, so are there reports of underground bases in that area that are tied to the military?
You certainly hear that a lot, and it's speculation. I don't have any proof of any of those things, but we know that there are. The Mormon Church has quite a maze underneath Salt Lake City, and
That's
we
because there's a
believe.
disc down there.
I'm
My 2 cents. I mean, I think
I
that's that alien. That's the Tommyknocker energy.
it's very interesting, and they're definitely connections I believe that need to be explored with the church aspect, and then the fact that it appears that all the ley lines of North America converge in Salt Lake City. So again, that's it's interesting, and it's all just I just think of things and then add as I research, I add to my big file of things, so hopefully I can make connections at some point.
But see, that is so cool, and I have never one really heard of activity in Utah. So I mean, there's that part, but it's I think it's interesting that all the ley lines go there. You have, well, I mean, the Mormon stuff, which I knew was alien weird stuff, but you don't hear anything really other than you don't really hear anything about Utah.
No,
Why
you
not?
don't. I think that I think we have a society here, and I think it's like any place where people don't pay attention to their surroundings. And so most of us are looking down, or we're obsessed with what's on the dinner table, or we're looking straight forward. And you have that aspect, and then you also have the aspect of where would somebody in Utah go to really report a sighting? And through MUFON, when I was state director, we that was great because I was getting the word out, not only in Utah but on an international level about the importance of the activity that we're seeing taking place here. So the chapter began to build, interest began to build, and then you've got the great research up at Skinwalker Ranch in the Uinta Basin, and so it's here. It's just a matter of disseminating that information and getting people interested.
Cool. And I want to talk today about the Skinwalker Ranch because I had heard about it. Well, when the movie came out, I don't know what, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, because I was at the 60th anniversary of the Roswell crash with Jerry Pippin.
Oh,
I
wow.
was manning the booth for him.
How fun.
And, so he was there selling the video. So that was pretty much my exposure to it. Actually, never saw the video. Uh, but, so when I started kind of doing some research for our interview today, I saw that that was one of the things that you had explored. And I started doing a little homework, and I'm like, oh man, we got to talk about this place. So let's kind of start at the beginning. Where is it? Obviously, it's in Utah, but is it near Salt Lake City?
It is, oh my gosh, it's about 2 hours away. It is, and it's 480 acres. It's southeast of Ballard, Utah, and it's in the Uinta Basin, which is an area that has a lot of activity, a lot of strange activity for that we've seen for decades, if not longer. So it's an incredible place, and I think that we've kind of focused so much on what's happened at Skinwalker that sometimes we don't really pay attention to stuff that's happening around it because it's just as peculiar.
All right, I'm going to get a little woo-woo on you, but has anyone gone in there to look at if there's like a giant vortex there, or, some reason why there's this activity happening?
They have, and the ranch was bought when the ranch first made news. It interested Robert Bigelow from Bigelow Aerospace, and he bought the property and then went in there and had some of the world's leading researchers go in there to try to determine what was taking place. Unfortunately, none of his findings or the team's findings have been released in a public forum. And you do have, though, I mean, Colin Kelleher, who was researching up there for Bigelow. I mean, he and George Knapp wrote a great book, Hunt for the Skinwalker, and that's wonderful. There's also Dr. Frank Salisbury, who wrote the Utah UFO display, and again, he talks about Skinwalker Ranch and the research, and then also sightings in the Uinta Basin. So it's phenomenal. There's no place like it on Earth. There really isn't.
So what kind of things are happening there? I mean, obviously there's some kind of sightings going on, or a sighting, but what else is going on?
It is, you had mentioned, could it be a vortex? I absolutely believe that's the case. You see every type of phenomena taking place there. So you've got strange creatures, Bigfoot sightings, you have UFO sightings, paranormal activity. I have reports from witnesses. I have not been out there in the past few months to confirm this, but that there is increased military activity there. So, and cattle mutilations. I still get reports from ranchers in that area that their cattle are being mutilated. So you name it, and it's there.
And see, that's interesting because you mostly only hear about the cattle mutilation situation that was going on in New Mexico in the mid 70s.
Right. It's still going on, and it's quite I mean, it's disconcerting for these people. There's a person I know he's a third generation cattle rancher, and very candidly, I mean, people don't like to talk about it because they're frightened and it affects their reputation and their livelihood. But that's his cattle are still mutilated, and they lose a lot of money when this happens. And when you've got UFO activity and different things, and nobody can tell them what this is, it's very frightening.
Well, and so if there are ranchers, I'm assuming they are not on the Skinwalker Ranch, but they're just on surrounding ranches
Right,
that they're having issues as well.
right.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not, it's not in my opinion, and from what other researchers have told me and people that I trust implicitly, what's happening there is not a good thing at all. I'm just saying, it's just, it's kind of like, bathe yourself in holy water and, take every sort of precaution that you can, because it's there. You're really truly dealing, I believe, with multiple things, and they don't have maybe the best intention.
See, now I want to go there.
Oh lordy.
So, what brought it into the forefront? How did people start hearing about this place in the first place?
You had a family that lived there, the Shermans, and they had just moved there. They're cattle ranchers. They wanted to start a life doing this, and they bought the property and were so completely terrorized that word got out, and then the Deseret News did a story on Skinwalker Ranch, and that kind of blew the lid off of what was happening. And then they endured quite a bit of, not only were they dealing with this, but then you have public sentiment and probably people in the area that did not necessarily want their area to be highlighted because of these strange goings-ons there. So that got it into the forefront. And then you had Bigelow and Colm Kelleher and George Knapp who wrote Hunt for the Skinwalker. So see, there you go.
Okay, but tell me the dirt. So like what kind of weird, I mean, so you said the cattle mutilation, which is already weird by itself, but what other weird, kind of things were going on? I mean, because, when people say, well, they live there and they're weird stuff, I automatically go poltergeist, or some kind of ghostly activity. But then you get into that subset and it's like, you hear, I mean, I do ghost hunting, you hear all kinds of weird stories. So what kind of stories came out of there of, just weird stuff?
There were reports of wolfen-like creatures, incredibly large creatures that would appear and would be shot at multiple times and just turn around and look at people and walk off. So you have that, and that also, I've spoken with Native Americans who have also encountered things like that. And then you throw in the Skinwalker lore and things which we'll talk about. But there are reports of spheres of light and then creatures getting out of these objects. I had a case that we were looking into, and the person had reported very large 7-foot tall creatures with glowing eyes and things that were terrorizing him. So it's a really frightening place.
The people that live in the surrounding areas, were they also having similar type things happen to them also?
We have reports of that. I mean, I've got news clippings from 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and reports from people where there was one particular night, and I wish I could remember the date, but it was over a weekend where there were many UFOs seen in the area, just right there, and people were just wondering what the world it was. So it's a known thing. Again, you've got the aspect of people don't want a lot of attention there for many obvious reasons, and that's because you get people in there that have no respect for property or people's lives, reputations, careers, and so they'll go in there and trash property, trespass, do all of these things that are just because we're doing this, we're going to post a video on YouTube, but they don't have a clear understanding of A, the law, and B, what they are dealing with. We don't even know. I don't think the leading researchers that spent years up there even know what we're dealing with.
So have you ever been there?
I have been up in that area, yes, and I can't, unfortunately it's a private property, so getting on to Skinwalker Ranch would take probably a good bit of doing. Not that I haven't tried, mind you. And I don't give up too easily, but that would be a special privilege for me if that were to ever happen. I had a really great investigation up there of a family. A fellow in particular filed a report with me, and he had seen repeated UFOs over the Array gas mine or oil mines, oil mines, oil. You know what I'm saying. It's
Hmm.
early in the morning. I'm telling you. I haven't had enough Diet Coke today.
I
The
love
oil
you
is
even
so bad.
more.
It's so bad. I know this is bad. As a health professional, I know Diet Coke is bad news, but he had reported these things, and as I began to talk to him, one thing led to another, and he divulged the fact that his grandmother, who was in her 80s, was in the area and had repeated sightings, including one sighting where they were all out. This is back in the 80s, early 70s or late 70s, and they were out as a family. They were rock hounding, just messing around, and they she kind of wandered off, and then they looked for her and they were perplexed because you can't go too far in this area. It's very rugged terrain. And when they found her, it was several hours later, and her body was covered in strange burns in almost a pattern. And she was disoriented. It was incredibly frightening. And so they took her to the local doctor, and the local doctor said that she had suffered radiation burns. And then and she said when she was kind of coming to, that basically that they had taken me. So I spent a considerable amount of time with her, interviewing her, doing video interviews with her, which someday I will edit and then release those interviews. But she talked about that, and she talked about being a little girl, 6 years old, standing by a creek and seeing a strange being there that said, "We will be with you your entire life." So you've got her story, this grandmother's story, and you've got her daughter who also witnesses many strange things, and then the son. And it's fascinating. And these are people that they're very genuine people. There's never a good reason to come forward with this stuff. There's not personal gain. As you know, it is a lot of disbelief and persecution when people choose to make public statements about what they've experienced, especially when it comes to contact.
Hmm. Are there many reported cases of abduction in that area? I mean, you just shared one.
Unfortunately, no. And again, I think that goes back to the fact that it's a very closed unit of people. Rightly so. They're protecting each other, and they should. And I don't know if they have a safe place where they feel they could talk about that. We're definitely trying to establish those connections because it's important. And we need to show them that we have the best intentions, which is to collect information and to try to help in any way that we can.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you ever wonder what they like talk about amongst themselves? I mean, I was married to a gentleman who came from a ranching family, and so they would have the big Memorial Day branding. And,
Oh,
but
dear.
all the local, because they would all help each other brand their cattle. So on Memorial Day, they would have this big final branding and this big party. And it just makes you wonder, if they would talk about the weird stuff that was going on around them at events like that, or, while they're working together with their neighbors, kind of thing.
I would imagine that they would, because you have to cope with this somehow, and talking about it and sharing stories and knowing that other people are experiencing the same things is a very important part of trying to heal or trying to come to grips with what's happening. So I'm sure they do.
Or did you see that thing last night? I
I
mean,
know.
because it's obviously not over my piece of property and you can't see it on yours.
It's quite curious. And I also have a friend up there, Ryan Burns, who he has a property and he lives pretty close to Skinwalker Ranch, and he's written a book, Beyond Skinwalker, and he goes out there and researches, and I keep telling him, okay, Ryan, get ready because I'm coming up there and we're going to go out and do a little sightseeing, see what we can come up with, and he's busy jet setting and all sorts of stuff, and I would love that, but he's taken some pictures there of this strange kind of wolfen-like creature. He's also taken photos of quote unquote men in black, or people, two men dressed very similarly, that are out on his property with some unusual equipment, taking measurements of some sort. So, and he's since he's lived there for a long, long time, he's established quite the rapport with people there, including the Native American tribal elders and things. So that's a good thing.
Well, and we've been talking about the term skinwalker, and when I think of that, I think of the American tradition of or concept of shape shifting. So is
Yes.
that where that title came from?
Yes, there's the Skinwalker Ridge, and the Native Americans, there are places up there in the Uinta Basin that they simply won't go. They have respect for it, and they understand that there is something much more going on there, and that it's perhaps not the best. And so, when you have sightings of skinwalkers, it's always they're not good. They're witches, shapeshifters that have the ability to kind of feed off of fear, and they take great delight in the torment of others, and that's really how they feed with negative energy. And so when you see a skinwalker, I spent some time speaking with a Native American fellow, and he's been so kind to me, and I've talked to other researchers about that, and he said that when you see a skinwalker, you turn the other way, you never make direct eye contact with it. Obviously you're saying some prayers and you go on your bit, a lot of prayers, you go about your business, and that's really important. And he said that there is a reason that they don't do a lot of, they don't encourage like singing or chanting alone at night, because it draws attention to you.
Hmm.
So,
So will they won't go to Skywalker Ranch?
no, Skinwalker Ranch, no.
Skinwalker Ranch?
I mean, I believe that there's some that, from what I understand, there might be a groundskeeper there that is perhaps Native American, and I need to talk to Ryan about that. But it's, they have respect. They understand there are places that you don't go.
Well, is it respect or is it more considered like a taboo area that you just don't go?
Right, yes. And I will say that skinwalkers aren't just, they aren't just specific to an area like Skinwalker Ranch. The fellow that I spoke with told me that he was in a big city and had a sighting with what he believes is a skinwalker. And so I think we just need to understand that there's a whole other world out there that perhaps we don't give validity to, which in some cases, ignorance is bliss. Maybe that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we shouldn't understand how many negative things there are coming at us.
Mm-hmm. I just did an interview with Barry Fitzgerald from Ghost Hunters or
Yes.
International, and
Yep.
we were talking about the Sith. And he went to this one island that basically you're not supposed to go to, and because it has these bad spirits, and it kind of sounds like a similar energy. And there was like this portal to the underworld, and his comment was he went in there and as a ghost hunter, you've gone to a lot of creepy places, and
Right.
especially in Europe, I'm sure they've gone to a lot of really creepy places. And he said he had never been so freaked out.
Wow. Oh, I better find out more about that. That's interesting. I like him. He's a great fellow
Hmm.
from what I understand, and I look forward to meeting him
He'd
sometime. But
be a great
it's,
interview. His new
oh,
book, good
okay.
interview.
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks for the heads up.
yeah. Um, well, especially when talking about this topic. Um, all right, so I have to ask, because this is kind of like one of my new favorite topics, is there a tie to, or are there legends of the reptilians being up there? I mean, other than, the David Icke material?
Oh boy. You know what? I have not personally investigated any cases where we've had the reptilians. I mean, I think that, when you've got this report of strange creatures, could they be reptilian? Sure, but I don't have any evidence to back that
Okay.
up.
Okay.
So
Fair
I don't
enough.
know. Wouldn't surprise me though.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me either, but thank you for watching this portion of our interview with Erica Luks. If you're enjoying today's show, please click on the button below and subscribe to our channel. If you want to hear this interview in its entirety, become a Just Energy Radio insider at justenergyradio.com and access full shows commercial free and gain access to our over 9 years of show archives. And don't forget to share this episode with your friends on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. So until next time, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Just Energy. Be blessed.